Well, properly rank old game that, wasn't it? I haven't really got much to say on that, to be honest. We all, we've all watched that, right? We've all seen that. I mean, I don't think we've seen that exact match that many times at Old Trafford. The annoying thing is, like, the past kind of few games at Old Trafford really stick out because we generally play quite well, and we're just on the receiving end of a, whatever, a lapse in concentration or a couple of shitty decisions or a Ronaldo masterclass. But that was awful. It was really, really bad. The worst we played all season easily. It's another big test away that we failed in. We failed against Arsenal. Chelsea's a difficult one. Start of the season, Tottenham at home is probably their biggest game of the season, so I don't want to call a point at Stamford Bridge a failure, but we didn't play that well, shall we say. But today was horrible, really horrible. I'm really, honestly struggling to think of any positives from it. Other than his initial kind of fuck up early on in the game, Hugo Lloris was pretty outstanding. But that felt like a real... I don't know if it's an eye-opener. I don't know if we need to get that dramatic yet. It's a bad day in the office, that's for sure. Really bad day in the office. Remains to be seen if you can go and really do anything significant in a season. By significant, I mean win the title. And after watching that today, it feels pretty laughable, doesn't it? I think that's kind of feels like a bit of a bubble burster in a way. Not that I think we were ever under any... I was never under any massive illusion that we were going to win the league or anything like that, don't get me wrong, but I still maintain that little bit of hope that we might have an outside chance. Ridiculous as it may sound, you still kind of cling on to that, right? But after that feels like a real, like, no, Tottenham. You are not ready for that yet. There's been a lot of talk today about Spurs potentially offering Conte a bumper new contract. I think a couple of years on top, with like 200 mil to spend over his tenure. And you're sort of starting to think like, well, that's the time we need to focus on, right? If we can get into the Champions League again this year, and he stays, and we can get some of that money, then maybe in a couple of years' time, we can be dreaming of the title. But I think for now, we need to just be perhaps just clinging on to finishing in the top four is a good thing, and having a nice run in the Champions League. Because, I don't know, it's just chastening, wasn't it? It was not nice. It's just a rank game, that really rank game. I don't even feel... It's one of those games, right? I don't feel angry. I feel angry in the games like last year at Old Trafford, when really we should have gone and done them, and Ronaldo showed up and scored a hat-trick, and it just felt so like written in the stars that, of course, Ronaldo went and did that against us. And it sort of pissed me off, and it pissed me off like a few of the games we've played against, like Liverpool, for example, over the past few years, when we've given them a really, really good game and they've just managed to get one over us at generally sort of the last throw of the dice. But today, just really deflating. Honestly, I just feel really, really deflated about that. Don't even feel particularly angry. Manchester United completely deserved the win. They deserve to probably win it by a couple more goals on top of that, to be honest with you. It was an ugly, ugly, ugly performance from Tottenham. Which is funny because, you know what? For the opening kind of 5 to 10 minutes, I thought we put together some nice kind of little moves. We had a few kind of slick little interchanges. I was finally starting to see these almost mythical Conte automations that I hear bandied about a lot. And I started to be like, oh, well, you know what? Actually, I see these shapes on the pitch. I see people moving, passing the ball about almost telepathically. We had one really nice move in there But from that point on, it's almost like United, probably, I would say 15 minutes on, just weren't having any of it. And they pressed us relentlessly. It just felt like we could never get a foothold in the game. Not a single foot. It felt like we never were in a position of strength at all, barring like one or two little moves. And then toward the end of the second half, when they were sort of playing on the back foot completely at that point, and we still couldn't really do anything meaningful with it. Obviously, we can't blame the formation this time, because it's the formation that everybody's been crying out for. And you can't help but feel that Conde may be feeling a little vindicated. Yves Bissouma was not great. I just don't think anybody was great. It was a weird one. Let's go into the player by player, because I'm just sort of in a little loop at the moment, going on and on about the game not being great. I mean, no fucking shit, mate. Right? All right, don't need to keep fucking telling me. I can hear you. All right, if you haven't switched off already. Somebody was going on at me about talking about how negative. I don't think I'm that negative. Do you think I'm that negative? I think I veer quite, handsomely between being a bit of a happy clapper and I guess having a sort of jaded realism about. So see, that's what smug negative people always say, isn't it? Realism. And I've just done that. See, that's what I've just done there. I'm not going to let myself off the hook with that, because that's a rat move. That is just kind of intellectual grandstanding, making out that like an emotional conflict is actually an intellectual one, and I, the intellectual, hold the upper ground on that. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to do you dirty like that. But I do think that I do have, like, I'm a big dreamer. That's the thing. I don't think it's happy clapping. I'm a big dreamer. I allow myself to always hope that Spurs are going to do something big. And I get emotionally affected by things that happen. But I think I'm negative. So I don't really take that one on board. I don't think that's fair. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. But Tottenham, Man United. I wonder who created, like, when language was being established, abbreviations. One's like UTID. Why is it not uni? Why is it UTD? UTID. I get it, because you're kind of cutting out the middle letters, I guess. It's a shortening of the whole word. An abbreviation, Jack. Yes, you already said that. I don't know. Hugo Lloris, so he had that one moment right at the start of the game, which I thought, oh, fucking hell, here we go. Hugo in a big game, drops the ball like he's dropped his bollocks. But from that point on, he had a fucking masterclass today. He was absolutely phenomenal. Fingertip saves, AOTS. Honestly speaking, the only player of ours, barring maybe one other, that I would say had anything close to resembling a good game. Which is funny. It'd be nice if he could do this in the big games when the rest of the team are playing well and he decides to, as I say before, drop a bollock, which he generally does in big games. I'm a big lover of Hugo. I'm a Hugo Lloris believer, but stats are stats, aren't they, lads? And he has form in the big games. Christian Romero, just not great from him today. Not particularly dogged. I thought he got skinned a lot. I thought he didn't play effectively under pressure. I don't think he liked people coming at him. It was an odd one. It was an odd one, and I think it was kind of. Sometimes you get this with Romero, right? Because he's such a good player. Really, when he's at it, he's such a good player. You do forget how young he is, and you forget that, like, young defenders, they can often get a bit bullied. They can start to look a little bit lost when things aren't going entirely their way. And I think, he sounds like a fairly sort of like bogus kind of observation, but it's just that's sort of what it felt like to me. It felt like Romero was sort of showing his kind of age today. That the sort of his experienced partner Eric Dyer had, and if anybody's listening to this, I've fucking been banging a drum for Eric Dyer all season. Awful game today, awful. And I think when a young defender is looking to their kind of pillar of strength, their centre back partner, and he's having the sort of game like Dyer was today, he can be forgiven for maybe being a bit rattled, but not good. Eric Dyer today, you know what? This was Eric Dyer of a couple of years ago. This is Eric Dyer who needs his appendix or spleen or whatever it is out. Because is that problematic? I don't know. After I did all my if anybody knows what it's like having a chronic health condition, now just throw him under the bus. First sign of a bad game. What a piece of shit. Ah, dear. Fuck me, man, football fans. Eric Dyer. Awful. Just awful today. He kept doing it. I don't know if anyone else noticed it. He kept doing this weird little thing where he kept trying to chest the ball to people. Just fucking get the ball and kick it. Pass it. Take the ball down. Stop trying to do his fucking flash shit. Chesting, puffing his chest out, trying to pass the ball. I swear he did that 2 or 3 times this game. And United robbed him at least twice when he was trying to do this bullshit. But I thought his positioning was out of position. I couldn't really think of what I was going to say there. Out of whack. I just thought he was terrible. I thought his passing was not good. He's usually really dominant in the air, just not good. And it's funny seeing a game where he's not playing well and the whole defence feels a bit rattled. And not just the defence. That is sort of like the midfield band in front of him. Suddenly looked a bit more wobbly. Not a good performance from Dyer today. Really disappointing. He got hit in the face really hard as well. That was another weird thing about this game. Eric Dyer's chest and players getting hit in the face by the ball. And I was thinking about this. It makes me wonder why it doesn't happen more often. Why you don't see it more often. I couldn't stand. So please, actually, if anybody can help me with this, I've cleared the cache. I've done all the things. Stop running out background applications. I have a Fire Stick, right? An Amazon Fire Stick. But watching anything on Prime through the Fire Stick, which is wired, it's connected into my router, it's not Wi-Fi, I've done everything, basically. I've done all the troubleshooting guides. But everything that I try and run through Prime is awful. Even the menu is slow and awful and dog shit. So even though I'm a Prime member, I didn't watch the game on Prime. I found a stream and watched Peter Drury's commentary on it. And yeah, I can't remember what my point was going to be. Yeah, the commentators were even talking about the fact that the ball, it's so rare that we see actually players get taken out with a ball to the face, yet there were, I think, three incidents of it in this game. I think Fred got one, Dyer got one, and the other lad, was it Dallo, got one as well. All pretty nasty as well. Dyer's was horrible, really horrible. It must be like getting smacked, actually properly punched in the face, man. And anyone that has been punched in the face, it's not pleasant. Yeah. Ben Davies, completely, for me, it was bizarre. I thought there was no middle ground with that performance of his tonight. I thought he was brilliant in a couple of touches, more towards the start of the game, really, and just abject in other stuff that he was doing. yeah, horrible. I was talking about sort of Davis with Con the other day. That I quite like his doggedness. I like his sort of like up in their grill type approach. But maybe Longley for the bigger games. The big games like this when we need a bit more control. We need a bit kind of more of the measured approach to our defending, our general build-up from the back. And I feel that Davis kind of put us off a bit tonight. Because that exact thing, that dogged kind of running about, it sometimes veered into headless chicken territory, I felt tonight. And it didn't help that a lot of his passing was pretty wank. I guess one little bit of credit I'd give him, I think him and Perisic have a decent understanding. I think they overlap quite nicely. And again, it's really hard to say nicely after watching this game, but just little glimmers of it here and there that I thought were okay. I was saying at the top, there was only one other player other than Lloris that I would say that potentially had an alright game. The sort of game that they could look back on and think, I did okay there. And I thought that was Matt Doherty. Look, don't start coming at me saying, oh, none of his fucking crosses were that good or anything, because they weren't great. But in the sort of piecemeal attempts, or should I say passages of play that we managed to put together, he was way better. He did way more even just in this game than I think we've seen Emerson do all season. I'll be really disappointed if Doherty drops out and Emerson comes into the fold now that he's done with his suspension. It would be really, it'd be really disappointing, because I think Doherty he's earned the opportunity to kind of play there a bit more. But yeah, played pretty well. Him and Kane link up pretty well. Tonight wasn't the best example of that, but yeah, it was an okay performance, I thought, from Doherty. We'll talk about Bentancur and Højbjerg together, because the funny thing is, like, them as a partnership, they do seem to ride or die together, and it very much seemed the latter today. I think they both tried. I think Højbjerg in places put in a few decent challenges. I think Bentancur put in a few decent challenges, but I think both of their passing was a bit off tonight. I thought they were losing. I thought Casemiro gave him a horrible game. I thought Fred and Casemiro are a real handful. I mean, they're both dynamic, kind of big players, big midfielders, those two. And it is funny how Fred has managed to turn his career around at United. He's actually really quite a decent player, I think. Felt this for the past couple of seasons, considering he genuinely looked like a competition winner when they first signed him. It looked like one of those standard kind of Manchester United death spiral type signings. But he's come really good. And I just don't think... I think we just got dominated in that mid, which is disappointing because we had the three. And I do think, as I was saying at the top, Conte's vindication. It feels harsh, man, because I don't think he did anything particularly wrong. But Yves Bissouma just looked to be not at this level, which is... do you know what the thing is? I don't want to be... It's one game, right? It's one game, and players can improve, right? Obviously, Conte improves footballers. We've seen Yves Bissouma in the Brighton system be a spectacular footballer. I'm just saying, off tonight, I was actually quite worried by how below us he looked. At least below our aspirations are, being a Champions League top 4 challenging team, he felt way off that. Maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know. And I'm not saying to get rid of him, bin the experiment or anything like that. I'm just saying maybe when Conte says in press conferences that he's not ready. I don't know. It feels a tad knee jerk. I don't know. I'm just saying off the back of tonight, I felt he looked, not very good at all. Without being particularly bad, he just looked a bit lost. He just looked like he was really out of his depth and kind of intimidated almost. It was a bit weird. And I think, I guess when you kind of, your opportunities are limited, there is that additional pressure there that, outside of just the pressure of playing away at Old Trafford. But it was disappointing. So Perisic is a funny one, man. Out of everyone, do you know what? It's funny because sometimes I don't know if you find that you get this listener, person there who I'm talking to. You might be out on your morning walk, walking the dog, just having a walk on your way to the gym. You might just have me droning on in the background immediately after the game or the next morning, when you're making a coffee or something like that, and your partner says, "Who's this monotone weirdo that you're playing?" And you're like, "Oh, he's just some gimp, but I quite like his podcast because it comes out before all the other ones. And I just want to listen to a bit of Tottenham stuff until all the podcasts that I prefer come out." But when you're watching a game, do you ever sometimes find that you fixate on a player, and it's not even a player that you've got? I think we all know we all have particular agendas against sort of certain players. Mine was Højbjerg, and he's proved me very wrong this season so far. Anyway, Perisic today though, I couldn't take my eyes off him, and I couldn't help but just kind of get wound up by almost everything that he did. Maybe he wasn't our worst player on the pitch, but I just felt like he was our worst player today. I know it sounds almost ridiculous because I've been so excited about the signing of him, about the potential of having a player of his stature in a real problem position for us, what it might be able to unlock. And I'm actually starting to lose patience with him a little bit. I know it sounds silly, but the past sort of couple of games, I've started to think he's not been great. And I've actually, like I said in the Everton game, I was actually like, my gut reaction was one of disappointment that Sessegnon wasn't starting instead of him. And being brutally honest, it wasn't tonight. It wasn't. I was happier seeing Perisic start this game because I kind of felt like his experience, his tenacity, his sort of attitude is what we need in a big game like this at United. But you know what? I thought he was terrible. I thought he shrunk. I thought the majority of his deliveries were off. I felt that his use of space wasn't particularly great. I felt like he looked kind of sluggish at times. The way he was, or it just seemed so predictable whenever he would get into space that he'd try and switch the ball to find himself a decent angle for a shot. And United were just all over it. It felt like he was a little naive, really. I don't know if that's the exact word I'd use, but he was not good. And like I say, it's just one of those things that sometimes in some games you just fixate on a player, and he was very much the player I was fixated on today. I'm sure he was no worse than anybody else, but it just felt like that to me. Confirmation bias is a thing, hey? Kane and Son, really weird one, man. We'll start with Kane. I thought Kane, he played some absolutely sumptuous balls, splaying them around the park. at various different times throughout the game. But other than that, it felt like, it felt like that little Martinez lad absolutely pocketed him. Did an absolute number on him. And it was almost quite like mortified for you, babe, that type of performance, because Kane just looked like, and it's not often somebody does that to Harry Kane. He has some good battles with some of the best defenders going. I think he always has a good battle with like someone like Van Dijk, for example. But that little Martinez, like, he was really fucking good, man. Real sort of dogged performance. Didn't give Kane a sniff. Other than that one shot where it hit the stanchion behind the goal, where I just thought that was flying in. I was getting ready to go mad on that one. It's a funny one. It's a funny one with him. I don't know. We'll save this for a bigger pod. We're talking about Kane. So there's a lot of talk about his contract and about him breaking our record and what do we do after Kane and what happens, and I don't know. It's funny. It's a funny one. But not a good performance from him tonight, and it's fine. He's having a great season. He scored a lot of goals. There's a lot of credit in the bank for him. It's just wasn't great for him tonight. Wasn't great. But he did play some great balls around the place. He was trying to make stuff happen. So, there's only so much you can do. Son, it was weird, man. It wasn't a particularly bad game, but then I'm kind of like, maybe it was. He was pretty anonymous for a lot of it. He looked, I think the main thing with Son is he looked tired, I thought, today. I thought he looked really tired. To me, it looked like the games are starting to catch up on him a bit. And he is, talking about this at the start of the season, he is getting on a bit. I mean, he's only 30, and I think by modern footballer standards, we need to sort of reassess our kind of understanding of where players are at in their careers by their age now. Nutrition's gotten better. Conditioning techniques have gotten better. Recovery techniques have gotten better. So I think Son being 30 years old isn't kind of the same as somebody turning 30 even at 10 years ago in the Premier League. But his position does have particular kind of requirements, physical requirements. Not his position as such, but I guess probably his position, but also just his style, the way he plays the game. He's a very dynamic footballer, basically. Always running at the defence, and it felt like he was running through treacle at certain points tonight. He had that one shot where he managed to sort of turn it onto his right foot and have that pop that, obviously we've seen curl in against Leicester. No such luck tonight. It just wasn't fully there. Him and Kane kept sort of trying to look for one another, but I think United did a decent number on them. It was good to see Jed Spence come on. He looked sort of positive down the right-hand side, but not really enough to make any sort of judgment on. I don't think any of the players that came on really did enough and had really enough time to do so. I think that's sort of my main criticism of Conte this evening, that he sort of stood there for an hour plus, looking sort of perplexed and angry, but didn't really do anything. Weird night, and like I say, rank performance, rank game, Old Trafford away, horrible. I sort of thought we were going to get something from this game. I thought we were going to beat him, to be honest with you. But back down to earth with a bump. So just on to the weekend, which is another sort of tricky game, really, isn't it? But we'll talk about that when we get there. So yeah, thanks for listening. If anybody has done, if anybody's made it to this point, please leave a rating and a review on your chosen podcast platform. Again, thank you very much to everybody who is subscribing or buying me a coffee on the Buy Me a Coffee website. There is a link in the Twitter bio. It's really appreciated. If you do want to support the show, great, and you're able to do so, fantastic, thank you. If not, no sweat. You get the same content, so it's all good. It's tough at the moment out there. So hope everybody is well, and it feels like I'm leaving a voice note to my fucking family, doesn't it? Hope everybody's well. All my love. Bye-bye.